The Texas Rangers are 2023 world champs, and we are still not over the many thoughts and feelings and musings. Joining me today is Grant Schiller to break down even more about your World Series champion Texas Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on the World Series champion 2023 Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow my guest at OG Shill. Follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Joining me today is the frequent flyer guest, Grant Schiller, the prospectus guru, the baseball enjoyer, the fan of the 2023 World Series champion Texas Rangers. How you doing, my friend?
It's pretty special. You know, I just never thought it would happen. You know, I think a lot of people felt that way too. Even just last week, like after Game 5, it was such a low, like it's not going to happen. I'm never going to see it. And to be here, it's really just so gratifying and satisfying, and it just feels amazing getting to share it with family, getting to share it with my dad and granddad, who I've grown up always sharing baseball with, and now my wife. I'm not Borat.
My wife.
And just getting to share that moment with so many people, and just think through all the memories of all the years of being a fan, right? Like 2011 feels better now. Like they did
feels
it
like nothing.
I cried and I'm happy.
It feels it. I watched a video compiling all these lowlights right before the highlights of the World Series of, like, you know, like the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2010s and the 2011 and the bat flip from all bat flips from Jose Bautista.
And the Elvis airs from that game, and I mean,
and even the game 162 and the fly ball, the game before where Aroldis Chapman blew it in Seattle, and a ball going right over Evan Carter's head. That I completely forgot about that game. Honestly, I completely forgot.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
And I watched it and I just smiled and I laughed, and it meant nothing. All these times, all these, you know, games where you watch the postseason, they'll show all these all-time great clips, and they'll keep showing that Game 6 David Freese, and it means nothing forever. God, is that great?
Power over me.
You have no power here. That's exactly how I felt watching that. So what was your experience? Who were you watching with? What were you going through what were your thoughts as this game started? You started to realize, oh, this might actually happen. When did you realize, I should say, that this was going to happen?
I felt good about it through the day, because I felt good about Eovaldi. If it wasn't for Eovaldi, I'd probably have been more nervous. The game started and it was going so poorly. I think around the 5th inning, I started to text friends and family that we're still cursed, and really started to go into panic mode. Little did I know that Eovaldi is just, I guess I knew it, but Eovaldi is just the biggest bulldog in the league. I knew, but I doubted. Me of little faith. And then, you know, they score in the 7th, right?
Mm-hmm.
They score in the 7th, but they don't take advantage and get 2, knowing that Chapman was going to come in. I didn't think that was going to be enough. Like, I was like, they had their chance to get a big enough lead and they blew it. The 8th, same thing. The 9th, once Heim hit that, I was like, okay, the Diamondbacks probably know they're done. Like, this is probably over. Then the Semien home run happened. All doubt was gone. It was just party.
Oh, it was beautiful. Who were you watching with?
So I was at my grandparents'. I was in the spot I've been all postseason for road games. So that spot's been 11-0. anytime I've stood up or gotten away from it is when bad things have happened. So I did my part last night. I didn't move.
Thank you
To
for your
my left
service.
on the couch was my wife. To my right was my dad and granddad, and across the room was my grandma, who doesn't like baseball but was happy to hang out with us. My mom also stopped by, and my dog really got a little bit too into it and thought that celebrations meant humping his dad. But yeah, it was a full family affair. How about you?
I was alone. I was here. I was by myself. My parents offered to watch with me, but I'm like, I turn into a feral gremlin when I watch these games, especially this this postseason when I've got like so much on the line. I was like, all right, this is everything that I'm doing right now, and I am way too invested in this, and I've so much wrapped up in this. And so the only game that I've watched not here by myself has been game 7 in Houston with my buddy Matt, and that was a pretty good exception to make. But since he is not a billionaire, he didn't get to ferry me away to all the other away games, so I did my part and I was here.
Come on, Matt.
Yeah, I know. He's working on it. All right, he'll get there eventually. For the next, well, I don't know about for the next one because the next run's probably gonna be like next year because nothing bad is ever gonna happen to us ever again. But it was a fun one. It was a great moment, and I don't know about you. What was the most? I think the most emotional part for me was was all the texts from friends sent and received and messaging and big group DMs. Cause I mean, we've been friends for what, like 7, 8 years. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while.
And like you and we've been through it. We've very much been through it, and texting all these other people who like I've known for years, like a decade, even not decades. I'm not quite that old, but like people who like I have known and grew like know because of Rangers baseball, and who have those same scars and who are just as shell shocked and brutally burned as I am and care just as much as I do and have become bitter and jaded over the years because of how close we've been and how much we've been hurt. And getting to experience the pure joy with those people is like, that's what it's all about, man. Like that is seriously like why I love this so much, why I, dedicated a large chunk of my life and my career to sports and telling these stories. The bonds that we have like with us and with you and with your family, like a community like that, an experience like that is so rare, and getting to celebrate moments like this, a once in a generation type of thing. I mean, the next one's going to be really freaking sweet. It's not going to be this, but it's going to be really freaking sweet. But those are the moments that are just like some of the best times in life are sharing those moments with those people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it objectively, it's dumb that it means as much as it does to us, but it does. And it does to so many people. So yeah, it's being able to share it with loved ones, and that really makes it so special.
Yeah, it does. I mean, a bunch of silly men in tight pants swinging a stick at a ball and catching it with a glove, like that get paid millions of dollars because despite whatever ratings have to say, a lot of people care a lot about this silly sport. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about this team, how it was constructed, why we're still both so in shock that this was the team that actually did the dang thing. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. There's a lot of great sports going on in the Dallas area right now, although the Rangers season is done because they won the whole freaking thing. I'm told, according to experts, Dallas, have you heard reports of this, that Dallas Mavericks good? Have you heard this too, Grant?
No, I didn't know that basketball season had started until, like, I don't know, tomorrow, whenever I come down from the Rangers.
Well, when you do come down, there are a lot of great DFW teams. If you want to get in on the action, visit fanduel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Now, I think my favorite thing about about champions is that everybody immediately tries to copy them. In all sports, they see, oh, this is what this team did, so I'm going to try and do that exact thing. But for me, outside of the spending a bunch of money on free agents, which is objectively good for baseball, and more teams should try doing it and stop being so poor, which we've said for years. We've even said it about, about our own team. We're glad they finally listened. But like thinking about the construction of this team, it's obviously like, oh, DeGrom, Seager, Semien. And there's a whole lot of other baseball players on this team that were acquired in a whole bunch of different ways. And it doesn't feel like super repeatable outside of like, well, yeah, just draft an Evan Carter in the second round of a COVID draft. Just get a top 10 pick in Josh Young and have it pan out. Make a trade for a first baseman that doesn't really make sense at the time, but it makes more sense to you. Just go get a franchise catcher, all-star starting catcher for an aging Elvis Andrews because you pay a little bit more of his salary. Like, it doesn't really super feel replicable, does it?
No, if somebody's going to try and repeat it, what they do is they throw money at their problems, right? And people talk about the Rangers bottle World Series to an extent, and that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But the part, a lot of teams have tried to buy their way out of their problems, right? What the Rangers have differently, and that takes a long time to set up, and that the people who just play copycat don't have they're never patient enough to do this, is the Rangers were able to buy these superstars because they were developing the depth already. Everybody who had paid attention to the farm system from, 2020 on had noted, this is a really deep farm. A lot of players who are going to be MLB players, but they don't have impact talent, or they don't have enough impact talent. So the Rangers self-evaluated. They saw that, and they were able to pitch to the ownership, and the ownership bought in to a great extent that we need to go buy that impact talent. So we have the depth, buy the impact talent, put them together, and most importantly, buy the right ones. Because you have all this depth coming up, that makes it even more important to buy the right culture fits and right makeup to have that strong locker room and have your leadership come in from afar. So it takes multiple things. It takes enough scouting on the makeup side in the minor leagues to have these high makeup guys who make up your depth. It takes enough scouting to go grab an Evan Carter when nobody else knew who he was. And it takes enough development, at least on the hitting side, to develop these guys to the majors, right? And then you have to have an owner who will go spend a bunch of money. You have to do the right evaluations of who you're getting there. I mean, the Rangers almost signed Anthony Rendon. It's not like they did perfect on that, but they avoided a disaster there. And then
Do you remember how mad we were when they didn't? Do you remember how mad we were?
Yeah.
We were livid.
Yes. Yes, we were so upset. And so I mean, it just takes a lot to go right. Like, you have to evaluate all the people exactly right. You have to develop this depth in the farm system, and the right players have to be available. Like, in order to buy a team that's good, there has to be a Corey Seager and Marcus Semien available in the same year. If they don't both sign together, do they buy into this project and the chances of them winning? Probably not. There has to be. I mean, Jacob deGrom was impactful. Like, those 6 starts that they won from him, they may not make the playoffs without it. There has to be a Nathan Eovaldi still sitting around late in the winter because he had dropped velocity in the back half of the year before. Like, there's a lot of things that had to happen, but in order to even have a chance to repeat it, you have to be great at evaluating makeup, and you have to be good enough at developing and scouting players to build this depth.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to have, a Travis Jankowski go right. You have to have Adolis Garcia prove to be not just a one-time All-Star, but a 2-time All-Star, and a guy who is just ungodly good at the biggest stage. And you also have to trade for Mitch Garver. You give up Ronnie Enriquez and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. I couldn't believe it at the time, and I still can't believe it to this day. I knew that was going to be a big trade, and it freaking was. I thought he was going to be the starting catcher, but turns out it was Jonah Heim.
I don't want to really jump ahead much because we're celebrating a World Series, but qualifying offer $20 million. You think Mitch Garver takes it, or you think he goes to free agency?
I think he goes to free agency, and I don't care either way. I think you have to offer it. There was a thought. Before in like July, I was honestly on the fence because I was like, $20 million a lot for a guy who's really injury prone, and like you've already got a catcher, and like it'd be good to get Jonah off his feet a little bit more. And then he goes on that insane run in August, and like really, I think is very underappreciated for how insane he was. Him and Corey Seager were just god mode offensively. Even when they were still losing games, they were just nutso.
The only reason they won any games in that period were those two.
Yeah, single-handedly world beaters. And I think he's going to be 32 next season or 33 next season. And he does have a long history of injuries. But you can see in the right scenario, you get him healthy, you get him catching, you get him engaged at the right time. He's a real impact bat. They don't get this far without him. They don't get to the playoffs without him. They don't, the Grand Slam, the protection for Corey Seager, he was legitimately that. He didn't have the best World Series offensively, but he drove in the game-winning run in the final game. And you know what? That's what I loved about this World Series is that in this entire offense, this entire run through the postseason is that outside of Robbie Grossman, which Robbie Grossman, world champ, God bless him. I can't whine about him anymore. But everybody who hit played a part. Everyone like contributed. Like Leody Taveras was great in the early rounds and got a homer off of Justin Verlander in the playoffs. That's amazing. Like Jonah Heim had some bad moments, but he homered twice off Framber Valdez, and he homered in the World Series, and he had the hit that made us all really start to think that, oh no, they're going to do this thing. And even Marcus Semien, who was just really not great offensively for almost the entirety of this postseason, had some amazing defensive plays and some very heady plays, like that freaking Jose Altuve play that I will never get over. It was so great and so smart for him and Josh Young to both point that out to little Evan Carter, like, oh, let's go do this and double him off. Like, oh, it was so great. But for him to come up in that blowout and really turn it into a blowout, and then for him to get the capper from the captain, it was just, it's why I love this team, and it's why they were so good. And I love that they put that on display in the playoffs.
Yeah, me too. And honestly, I think to me, it makes it a little bit more special just that they barely snuck into the playoffs. Because it means that not everybody, but almost everybody who gets a ring has a legitimate part of that ring, right? Like you look at Ezekiel Duran, he really wasn't on the playoff rosters. He didn't play in the playoffs at all. But if he didn't show up the way he did when Seager was out early in the year, they don't make the playoffs. You look at Grant Anderson, who had that great 2-week stretch. Do they make the playoffs if he doesn't do that?
No,
maybe not. DeGrom, they're 6-0 in his starts. Without that, they don't make the playoffs. You want to go as far as Jake Latz. He ate up 2 innings the day before they clinched the playoff spot. If he doesn't eat those 2 innings, you don't know what happens. Like it's such fine margins.
Sandy Leone and the great starts from John Gray and even Bubba Thompson early on in this season. Like, does everybody who was on the big league roster, do they all get rings?
Yes.
Good. I was so happy because I was going off on that last night, and I was like, I'm not entirely sure. I think so. I love that Cole Reagan's got the win in opening day. Like he gets a ring, and he might get another one with the Royals actually pitching in the with someone else whenever he becomes a free agent because the Royals get too cheap and trade him off. Maybe back to the Rangers. Maybe the Rangers can sign a 40-year-old Aroldis Chapman and trade him back to the Royals for just y'all guys. You want to control alt delete? I mean, JP Martinez. Those like 3 games where
in San Francisco,
the Rangers. Yeah, huge. Yeah. Brad Miller homered on opening day because that's what he does, and then he gets hurt and is there for the vibes, and that helped.
And he was a player of the game in a win later in the year, like one of his random like August starts. Like without that, like everybody except for like Taylor Hearn, like Joe Barlow. Like just about everybody has a hand in this.
Jonathan Ardell's participated in some games. He did.
Yes. He did.
I don't know how much Ian Kennedy did throw a couple scoreless innings a few times. Alex Spees. Remember the Alex Spees experiment?
I do.
Spencer Howard had that one game. That one game that was really freaking good.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. All it took is an impact on one win for you to have a hand in this ring. And I think that's pretty cool.
Even John King had impact. Like, he had a couple of games where he really saved this pen and did really well. Like, this freaking team, man. Stanley only has one inning pitched. I don't know if that helped very much in his 18 ERA, but hey.
Hedges clear.
Hedges closing it out. Hedges writing stuff on his. He pitched 4 games for this team.
I was really hoping. I mean, obviously they wouldn't do it. It's the playoffs. But how great would it have been if the Rangers had had a 10-run lead on Houston in Game 7 and closed it out with Hedges?
That would have been the funniest thing I think I could ever think of. Like, that would have been just the greatest middle finger to them. Coming up, we're look a little bit more about our favorite moments in this playoff run right after this word from our sponsors. This freaking team, the World Series champion Texas Rangers, sitting here chomping it up with Grant Schiller, the OG Shill. I mean, I feel like all of these moments blend together. So many moments from this season just kind of blend together. Is there one that kind of especially from this World Series that kind of sticks out in your mind? I mean, you were there in person for Game 1. Like, you were there for a lot of, well, there weren't that many home wins, but the couple of them that were there were pretty darn special.
Yeah, they were. Oh gosh, was there anything from this World Series? I mean, I'm going to take the obvious one. Standing out, we were direct center field, upper deck, standing out there watching the bottom of the ninth. You got to be kidding me, I can't believe they lost this game. They have to win the Eovaldi games. They have to win the Eovaldi Montgomery games. And seeing Seager, I mean, he just crushed that ball. He crushed it, and the place was nutso. I'm jumping around, my phone flies out, the guy next to me is jumping around, his wedding ring flies off. Everybody's just losing their minds. Standing in the same place that the last time I had stood there was Game 5 of the ALCS, where I was devastated. I was up against that big oat milk carton, just kill me now, while some Astros fan was galloping around and screaming. The switch from one to the other, that will stick with me. And I mean, that has to be my favorite moment. Just watching that ball just destroyed Mammoth. No doubter.
Absolute no doubter. And the fact that the Rangers just got just 4 runs off of Seawald in this game was nuts. And a defensive error of just whoop, there it goes. It goes by Alec Thomas, a guy who was I don't know if he was a Gold Glove finalist, but he freaking should have been. He's absolutely sensational defensive out there. And they made so many good defensive plays. Early in this game, in that game, Game 5, the Rangers had so many hard hit balls. I think through 4 or 5 innings, every ball off the bat outside of Travis Jankowski and 1 weak ground out from Seager, they were all hard hit. All of them. And here's Alec Thomas doing great things, which you expect, but then freaking Lourdes Gurriel Jr. tracking down a ball in the gap. I was like, are you kidding me? That's what I thought. I was like, there's no way. Yeah, Gallen's pitching well and he's a really great pitcher, but Gurriel is making that play that just felt devastating. And then I kind of flipped it in my head. I was like, oh, but the Diamondbacks have had 9 runners in scoring position at bats and they've gone 0 for 9. That has got to be, you got to lose your freaking mind if you're them. And I don't know about you, I didn't feel like some of the pitches that Eovaldi was throwing in those counts were that good to get out of those jams. Some of them were just hanging curveballs that they just missed.
Yeah, and I mean, it went both ways. I mean, some of it was that, and some of it was to get in those positions. Eovaldi had thrown some great 2-strike pitches that kept spoiling. I mean, they were spoiling some nasty stuff, and then getting little dinkers and bloopers to fall in. But yeah, I can't get over how much of a bulldog Nate Eovaldi is. Like, he is the definition.
He really is. And I can't get over the fact that I was so meh on his side. I was like, okay, you don't really need him. Like,
I got that one.
you were in on that one? You were?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you play back what we talked about like last October. Like, as free agency was starting, I was like, go get Nathan Eovaldi.
I think I do remember you saying that, and me at the beginning of free agency being like, I don't see it. I don't know that I really get it. And like all of my like Red Sox fan friends were like, this guy's so freaking good. He is so amazing. You were clearly in on him. And when they signed him, I was like, that's cool. That's a nice little consolation prize. I kind of wish they would have signed a left fielder. Little did I know Evan Carter was going to come up and Robbie Grossman was going to be serviceable for enough time. And Ezekiel Duran was going to play out there for a decent chunk. But Nate Eovaldi, like the steal of the offseason, like, my God.
There's a roundabout story here. If you want to talk about breaks that go your way.
I do.
So, at the time they signed Eovaldi, the biggest hole was left field, right? And the thought was that they're probably okay at pitching, but they had a hole in left field. So I don't have this fully confirmed, but I've heard from through the grapevine, secondhand, third-hand sources, not fully confirmed. But what I've heard is that they expected that they had Michael Conforto. This was when Carlos Correa was signing with the Giants. When Carlos Correa failed his physical with the Giants then went up their offer to Conforto, and he signed there. We then turned around and used that money for Nathan Eovaldi. So, in a very roundabout way, if this is true, which I'm just going to assume it is, since I like it, the Rangers have Carlos Correa to thank for their World Series championship.
Specifically his ankle.
Yes, his ankle. Yeah.
Oh, man. Thank you to Carlos Correa's ankle. What a... give that the World Series. Give that a ring. An anklet, if you will. An anklet for Carlos Correa's ankle. Oh, my goodness. What a different world that would have been. And what a worse world it would have been. I mean, the amount of like it's still so insane to me that we were like at spring training and we were like, are we sure they have enough pitching? And they like almost didn't. They did go trade for 2 starting pitchers.
Yeah, they wouldn't have.
And they had 2.5 starting. Well, 2.5 that you felt comfortable in a playoff start. And well, you know what? Up that to 3. Andrew Heaney, dog, job done. I mean, one bad outing, but 2 very good outings in very key spots. That game 1 of the ALDS, that was the game that I was most confident this Ranger team was going to lose. Like I was like, that's fine. It's Bradish. He's good. You've got Heaney Dunning combo. Like it might be okay. And it was more than okay. It was good enough to win, and they did win. And here you go, 18 billion starting pitchers. And you know what? Bring them all back. Bring them all back, and get a healthy UCL for Jacob deGrom. And oh my God, I'm just imagining a playoff start. I was at the beginning of this year, but now I'm even more so imagining a playoff start with Jacob deGrom. Like, a playoff rotation next year of deGrom, Eovaldi, Scherzer, Monty, and then
Gray.
Just throw Gray in there. Why not? Or check him with the bullpen because clearly he's a dog out there in the bullpen. Like this freaking team, man. Oh, and Josh Sborz.
Yeah, I mean, Sborz is incredible. That's a whole other story. I mean, he was written off in September for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk about Heaney. Heaney will never get the credit he deserves. But gosh, what an impact he had. He was disappointing this season, right? Like he struck out so many guys in LA last year. The hope was, okay, this is the new him. Turns out it's just Dodger Devil magic. But he was disappointing. He was up and down, very frustrating this year. He was frustrated with himself. But he had a great start to clinch the wild card. He had a great start to beat Kyle Bradish against Baltimore. And he had a great start to put us up 3-1 in the World Series. Like, he was a disappointment this year, and yet when it came down to it, he was so, so impactful.
He was. He was. And everybody on this playoff roster, well, outside of Burke, he didn't do a whole lot of good things in the playoffs, which is a whole bummer that we'll get to later. We're not doing bummers at all right now. But like everybody on this, well, I don't know, Martin Perez. Martin Perez participated as well, and he gets a ring, and that's what matters. And it's penance for what he did last year as an all-star and how important that was. But Cody freaking Bradford, those 3 innings against Baltimore to get that 2-0 lead. People might forget about it. I'm never going to forget about it. Like, that was incredible stuff. Like, just absolutely incredible. And before we get out of here, let's do our random Ranger. I'm going to stick with with someone this year. I think we've talked about literally everybody on here. I think literally every player who has been on this roster this year. But I'm going to go with Yerry Rodriguez as my random Ranger. We all know the deal with him. And he gets a ring. And what a freaking day. Yerry Rodriguez, World Series champion, Texas Ranger. You don't have to stick with anybody on this year. You can go off the books if you want.
Yerry's actually going to be interesting because I don't know if he has a 4th option or not. If not, he's out of options, and he'll probably be gone, but he'll be gone with the ring. So I'm going to go back to 2011 and our now exercised demons. I'm going to grab a lefty arm who came up through the Rangers system. He pitched in the big leagues for the Rangers from 2010 to 2014 as an up and down guy, all out of the bullpen. His career ERA with the Rangers was .498 and 106.2 innings, 55 walks, 103 strikeouts, and after the Rangers, he came back for 1 split season with San Diego and Milwaukee. Do you know who this random Ranger is? He's a 5th round.
Oh my God! It's Michael Kirkman.
It is indeed. I'm impressed you got that.
I was like, no, he's not. Yeah, he is. Negative 0.4 career WAR in 96 games. That is perfectly mid. Very good random Ranger.
And he came to mind because I saw a Michael Kirkman jersey in the flesh at Game 1 of the World Series.
Oh my God, that's incredible! What an incredible poll! What an incredible team, franchise, season, lifetime of baseball. Grant, thank you for joining me to enjoy all of this, as I'm sure we will do much more throughout this offseason when the Rangers go and sign Shohei Ohtani and make all of our baseball dreams keep on coming true. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.